Hello and welcome to Open Door. I'm Vince Robinson, and I am joined by a very special guest, someone I'm really excited to have a conversation with. His name is Orlando Watson. He is a lyricist, a clinician, a narrator, which means he's a voiceover artist, and he has a few other titles that we'll get into a little bit later. But with that, welcome to Open Door.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Thank you for having me, Vince.
All right. Just a few short weeks ago, I took in this event called the Tri-C Jazz Fest, and I see somebody running around interacting with the artists and everything. And then later on, I see him standing on stage doing the spoken word, and it was just phenomenal, brother. So
thank you.
Welcome to the show as a fellow wordsmith.
Yes, sir.
I'm excited to have this conversation.
Yes.
I usually start the shows by giving folks an opportunity to tell us about their roots. So tell us where you started and how you got to where you are now.
Where I started, that would be 140th in Glendale, Lee and Harvard area, Cleveland, Ohio. I guess you could say I come from a broken home. Parents divorced when I was 4. Father was very much so present in my life. Stayed with my mom on Glendale. Bused me across town to St. Peter Chanel High School, where I graduated in 2009. Went to Youngstown State University immediately thereafter. Graduated in 2014, degree in communications and minor in creative writing. I didn't get around to the communications major for quite some time. I went to college with the intention of studying music production with the emphasis on percussion. I grew up in church playing drums. My grandfather had a church in Lake County for several years, I think like 50 or something years, something like that, before his passing, called New Hope Baptist Church. So I grew up in the Painesville area, playing drums between Painesville and Cleveland. My mom played organ. Come from a very musical background, both sides, either sing or play something. My father as well. I guess furthering that, my musical roots, my family, a lot of my cousins, they had a group in the 60s and 70s in Cleveland called the Determinations. And so I'm just now kind of discovering that and looking up a lot of their music. I have some on my iTunes and everything, so it's a nice discovery to see where what I do stems from and how I've created my own path in that way. So yeah.
So you can be classified as a recording artist, and I know that you have worked with some very prominent folks, and I'd love to get into who those folks were, but I want to get to the genesis of the spoken word artistry and how that all started for you.
Yes, spoken word poetry started for me 17. I took a class in high school with a gentleman named Mr. Rock. He was our creative writing teacher, and I took the class as an elective or something like that, just something to do to fill in my credits before graduation. And it turns out that I loved writing. I had no idea. I remember being younger, always hated writing rough drafts before you have to write the final report. I was just always focused on writing the final report. But something about that creative writing class and the way he broke down the English language and how creative and clever you could be with words, I just completely gravitated towards it and immersed myself in the dictionary and expanded my vocabulary and my imagination. And that essentially led me to journals upon journals upon journals of poetry. I didn't know anything about meter, didn't know anything about iambic pentameter or haiku or anything. I was just writing my thoughts, and because I listened to a lot of hip hop in high school, a lot of it was rhyming, but none of it was rhyming in the structure of like a 16-bar phrase to where it sounded like a rap. So that's kind of how I fell into this ambiguous place of, oh, it sounds like poetry, but it's very based in rhyme. Like, is he a rapper? So I'm kind of like floating between these two worlds. So that's how I kind of got familiar with the art of spoken word.
Were you ever tempted to do the rap thing, or were you just basically committed to being a spoken word artist?
I'm primarily committed to being a spoken word artist. Maybe I'm leading the conversation a little bit too much, but on my forthcoming album, Corner Stories, I do dabble a little bit in rap. I kind of expand my artistry a little bit. You hear me sing, hear me rap, but the primary focus of the project is my spoken word still. So
I'm recalling a film that I saw last year in which Jill Scott played a college professor.
I was just watching that 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So where do you stand on that issue? Is it poetry or is it rap or?
I think that's a maybe complicated is a dramatic word to use, but I think that is a very common question at the very least. The way I feel about it is it's about energy and feel. To me, you can feel when someone's being poetic. It's really hard to explain or put into words. I kind of put poetry and love in the same categories in a way. Like, you just kind of know it when you know. When I hear Andre 3000 of Outkast rap, it's always very poetic to me. When I hear Mos Def rap or Yasin Bey rap, it's always very poetic. I think it's about the word choice. I think it's about the context of the lyric within the framework of the music, how you're floating over the bar line. It's the same, but it's different at the same time. So it just depends.
So would you say it's really more a matter of delivery versus content?
Yeah, delivery for sure.
Okay.
Delivery for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that your parents got divorced and you were 4 years old.
Yeah.
Did that traumatic event have any impact on your creative intuition or initiatives?
That's an interesting question. I don't think at that age I really knew. I think now at 30, I think it has a major impact on my artistry. I find myself writing about that quite a bit, and now as a parent and as a husband, just trying to connect some dots, trying to connect dots and seeing things that don't connect, and maybe trying to unpack the reasons why, dating back to what I did or didn't see in the home. So not so much then, but I think maybe on a subconscious level, it kind of led me to this space with you and what I do. So
yeah.
Sure.
Well, a lot of times the things that happen to us when we're very young impact us at a later time.
Yeah.
And many times it's the motivation for where we are in life later.
Yep.
It's those seeds that get planted. It's you watching your father do something or you watching your mother do something, and then there's also the genetic relationship to that. So it's like you're pre-programmed to do that. But when parents part ways, the children always have to deal with what happens, and it may affect them then, it may affect them later. I also wonder, you mentioned being a father and a husband, what impact that had on you to shape who you are right now and the relationship that you have to your wife and your child.
Huge impact. I will say that traumatic event happened at that time in my life didn't fully register to me, like I was saying, until much later. However, I can say and admit that when I was about 12 or 13, I remember going to my mom, and I remember her talking about stress about bills and what we can and can't do because resources and things like that. And I literally said out loud to her, I was like, I never want to put the woman in my life in the position that you are in due to my actions or, anything like that. And I don't even think at that time I fully understood. I just knew I didn't want to cause the same harm to a woman that I proclaim my love for. And, of course, you get older and you get into a relationship with your partner, and things develop, and you, at least I'm speaking for myself, you try to put your all into it and keep your intentions at the forefront and keep your intentions pure. So I think seeing and knowing what my parents went through and why has definitely had a huge impact on my relationship, why I fight for my relationship the way I do, why keeping my son and my forthcoming child together in one space under one roof with both parents is so so detrimental to me, so critical, so crucial. Yeah.
I happened to take view of one of your music videos on YouTube. I wanted to be able to share your talent with the audience. So why don't we take a look at a video that you did a few years back? I think it was 2018.
2018, yes it was.
Okay. We're going to take a look at this video, and when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about the context of that, and also I want to get to where you were at 17 and what you were writing about then, because I'm sure that what you were writing about then is a wide departure from what you were writing about in 2018. So we're going to take a look at this video, and we'll be back in a few.
So bound to you, slave to your fixes, desperate, picking the love you give. Masterpiece this life live, piece this life live, piece this life live.
I hung out for you, outstretched on the limb of inhibitions while you witness delicate discontentment dangle from my damaged skin. Fortunate, you were Hitler heaven sent, master of managing misuse, whereas to you, my abuse was a beautiful blend of brown blues, especially hued for you as my partner. In part, yeah, I've played the fool before. Foolishly ignored my house Negro tendencies even after I knew better was on the front porch of your pores. Beneath the roof of your truth, tucked in the coop of your confidence on 40 acres of brown estate, where you whipped me into shape, shifting sweet escapes where melanin was made to taste like the most precious fruit.
Bound to you, slave to your fixes, desperate, picking the love you give. Masterpiece this life live, piece this life live, piece this life live.
You selfishly assumed that my kind had no capacity for compassion, so I insisted to deliver you different perspective on splendid pigment while innocent humor ensued insensibly. Sensing you make sense of me, I prompted peer pressure on the pure pupils, letting lashes whip my will without warning, wow, compelling me to pick custom cotton encased in clever lip switch, led me to love and allowed me to lynch degrading myths that most men can't manage monogamy. But although this news is new to me, I'm set on hanging around with 10 toes down, with high hopes that you're open to color complexions, dining in colored sections with undivided fidelity, fond of me forever.
Bound to you, slave to your fixes, desperate, picking the love you give.
Man, that was amazing. The musicianship
Thank you.
the spoken word flow. I have to admit to you, when I heard it for the first time, and I was looking at your the flow that you had, it actually gave me shivers, man.
Wow.
Shivers, because
Wow.
I
Thank
relate
you.
to that so well. You were working with some pretty seasoned musicians.
Oh
then.
yeah, those are the homies, man. John Winfrey on drums, Jeremiah Napier on bass guitar, Willie McMillan on keys, and Chandra Ray on vocals. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
At first glance, I was thinking it was Donnie Lene, but when I looked at her closely, I was like, no, that's not Donnie, but
Not Donnie. Donnie's a good friend.
Yeah. Okay.
Incredible artist.
Yeah, well, we were trying to get her out here today.
Ah.
It didn't work out, but we'll get her at another time,
Cool.
and we're going to be doing some shows together, so it's all good. So just listening to the content of that song, it was really evident to me that you have a certain maturity about relationships. But I wanted to get to the 17-year-old Orlando. What was in your headspace when you were writing back then?
Oh boy, slightly embarrassing question. Definitely a different person at 17. At that age, I was really just beginning to get adjusted to the attention of young women. When I entered high school, I was a little chubby, and I was a band, what some people would consider a band geek, band nerd.
Band nerd.
Yeah, band nerd. I was section leader of the drum line, snare drum, and I had a lot of friends and everything, but nothing was too romantic at that point. It wasn't until I tore my ACL in 10th grade playing basketball for the second time, and I took my recovery process very seriously. I got in really good shape, and like low body fat, I was like cock diesel. People used to call me Zeus, matter of fact. So, and that's when things started to change. So I was writing a lot about, relationships and things of that nature. Nothing too serious. Now that I'm married, nothing at 17 or 16 seems that serious anymore. But at that point in my life, everything felt very serious. Felt like my world was crumbling whenever something went, awry. So, yeah.
So when did the paradigm shift take place? Because you were teased and all of that, and then you reshaped yourself.
Yeah.
And I would have to imagine with that confidence that you had, there came an attraction from the opposite sex, and then on top of that, you had this wordsmith aspect to yourself.
If I could be 100% honest with you, Vince, I didn't take my affinity for words too serious initially until I was on the phone with a young woman, a young lady, I should say, and I read something for her called Miss Anonymous. One of the very first poems, probably one of the first 3 poems I've ever written. Miss Anonymous. This is somewhere in the journal, and essentially the poem was about her having this wall up and me not getting to fully engage with her, get to know who she was. I read it for her. I asked for her opinion after I read it for her over the phone, and she was completely speechless, and she kind of like gasped. And I was like, I thought to myself like, maybe this is the route. Maybe I should keep making them swoon like this. So that's really kind of what made me take poetry seriously. Of course, like I developed a new purpose, a more meaningful purpose and passion for it. But that was the first thing. I was like, man, like I got her to react like this. And shortly thereafter, I read a different poem from my mom, and brought her to tears. So those two things in my mind, both women, of course, have a huge impact on everything we do.
Yeah. So
yeah.
you discovered the power of words.
That was the moment I discovered the power of words. Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So after discovering this power that you have with words, it took you to a different place and in a different direction. So where did you go?
Yeah. Shortly thereafter, I went off to college, and that's when I really dug deep into Def Poetry Jam and discovered artists like, Georgia Me, Black Ice, Jay Ivy, Common, who's like a hero of mine, Kanye West, all of these amazing artists who look just like me and talk like me and came from similar circumstances and places that I came from. I was able to turn on the TV or YouTube. I was in college watching YouTube at the time and just like go down a rabbit hole for hours. And that's kind of where I developed my sound, my style. I pulled a lot from those artists, as we all do when we borrow, and until you develop your own sound and style. So my content started to shift. I got a lot into history and Black history and social justice system, as we like to call it. So yeah.
So your study of Black history was kind of a door that opened to the consciousness with which you deliver what you do.
Absolutely. And the types of artists I began to engage with was a direct reflection of that. Like I was listening to a lot of roots out of Philadelphia, Black Thought, like I mentioned earlier, Talib Kweli, Mos Def. So I was taking in all of this like super dense lyricism, very Afrocentric and conscious material. So it was just a matter of time before it just poured out of me. So yeah.
And so subsequently, you end up on stage with Marquise Hill, which is a phenomenal musician, and he's like, oh yeah, that's my cat.
That's the homie.
How does that happen?
Right place, right time. Yeah, right place, right time. I met Marquise in 2019, just a few years ago. I was leaving a rehearsal preparing for my set at Jazz Fest. Me and my band were performing on the outdoor stage, so I was leaving that rehearsal to get to the bop stop where he had his set, and I just missed him. He was literally walking off stage. I think it was him, Joel Ross, who's a phenomenal vibraphonist. And I caught him before he went out the door, and we just was kicking it, man, just rapping and just connected on a level. You know the energy when it's right, you know. And we exchanged numbers. He's been keeping in touch and trying to get him on my project. He's trying to get me on his projects. And when we met together at Jazz Fest, where you saw us a couple weeks ago, it was just like, hey man, you should hop on stage with me. That was literally it. We didn't plan it, nothing. So yeah. That's the homie Marquise Hill out of Chicago.
Yeah. That's the beauty of it, though.
Yeah, man.
I mean,
Yeah.
I did a set with Okanta a few days back, and we didn't have any rehearsals.
Yeah.
You know, we did like maybe 2 or 3 virtual shows during the pandemic.
Got you.
You know, and it was the same thing. We used Zoom or StreamYard or whatever. He'd come by the house. I had the keyboard set up,
Yeah.
and I played. He did the spoken word.
Nice.
And so this past event, again, no rehearsals. He talked about something that we had done before, and you know, I can't go back and
Right.
recreate what I did
Right,
before.
right.
So it's like
It's in the
whatever
moment.
happens in the moment.
right.
So I split my keyboard now, and I play upright bass with my
with
left,
the left hand,
and I
yeah.
play keys with
Yeah,
the right
yeah,
hand,
yeah.
and I started vibing with that
Yeah.
bass, and I started feeling it.
So you vibing now, them shoulders
Oh
moving.
man! I mean, you know, but music. I mean, it's the lifeblood for so many of
Absolutely.
us, you know. And then the whole idea of having a certain level of consciousness, you know, that's another thing that's important to me, and that's one of the reasons that I appreciate what you do so much, because there's so much music on our musical landscape right now. It just doesn't touch me. It doesn't reach me. I don't connect to it. And a lot of music like that is keeping us back. So it's important for those of us who have a voice, who have a certain level of consciousness, to do what we can to get our music out. So where do you stand in that scenario?
Where do I stand? I feel way in the background, man. Sometimes I wake up and I feel like I have so far to go, so much to learn, as we all do. But sometimes I just like, it's so much I want to know. I feel like that's the first step, you know, the initial yearning to learn, relearn, unlearn, relearn, do what you got to do. So I feel like that's a period where I'm at right now, just digesting audiobooks, books, conversation with elders and peers alike, just understanding that just when you think you're starting to know something is when you actually don't know anything at all. Yep.
So you mentioned being on the drums when you were younger.
Yeah, man.
Are
First
you
love.
still connected?
Yeah, but a lot of my friends are so much better than me these days, so I just hire them to to go in the studio and stuff. But I still play. I still have a few of my sensibilities, but I'm nowhere near as good on drums as I was back in high school, middle school. But
Okay.
yeah.
Now's your chance to drop a few names. We already mentioned Marquise. What are some of the
You gonna
other
have me do that, man?
Yeah, I'm gonna let you do that. Talk about some of the other projects and folks you've been involved with.
Things I've been involved with. One of the most notable for me would have to be Layla Hathaway. She handpicked me to open for her Honestly tour in 2018, which was a year after I released my debut EP, Everything's Personal. And I submitted to like this virtual contest that she was having on Instagram, and she was like, Cleveland, I'll see you there. And I was just like losing my mind. I was in New York at the time gigging with Dominic Farinacci, who I was on stage with at Jazz Fest. Got the call in a taxi. And I was like, yo, called my wife, FaceTimed her, couldn't believe it. So yeah, Layla Hathaway, she's a sweetheart, man. And said Marquise Hill, Terrence Blanchard, who's an incredible composer and trumpeter. That was a very unique experience, actually, very unique experience. And Who else, man? You put me on the spot. Braxton Cook on saxophone. He was based for several years in New York, but he's out in California. Him and his wife just relocated. He's doing incredible. But yeah, I'm on a record with him, and we're working on something for 2022. It's a few people. Linda Briseño, first female Latin Grammy award-winning producer of the year. I think she's two-time producer of the year now. But yeah, I'm on a few records with her. John Clayton, composer, bassist, Grammy award-winning. He actually, what's special about John Clayton is, I think it was oh boy, I hate putting out the wrong years. I want to say 1986, but whatever year Whitney Houston sang the national anthem, he made that arrangement.
Okay.
He made that arrangement. So yeah, shout out to John Clayton, really good guy. That's Gerald Clayton's father. I don't know if you're familiar with Gerald Clayton.
Of course.
That's Pops. That's Pops. Yeah, that's Pops. So
I've been covering the Tri-C Jazz Fest
for many years.
As long as you've been alive.
You said 91, man. So yeah, it's right on. That's right on spot. That's right on spot.
As a matter of fact, I've seen both of them at Tri-C's Jazz Fest and at the Detroit Jazz Fest.
Oh yeah.
So I've gotten quite a bit of them and really love and appreciate their music. So what a charmed life you are living, my brother.
Man, I'm really favored and blessed. I can't take any credit for it.
Yes. So you went to Youngstown State.
Yes, sir.
And then you end up as an associate director of the Tri-C Jazz Fest.
Yeah, ask me how.
I'm asking.
I don't know. We got to ask Miss Terry Pond Tremblay, because I'm still in awe. Still have to wake up and pinch myself sometimes. It's a beautiful place to work, beautiful team. And yeah, man, the way that came about was a very unique experience too. My wife and I were actually in LA, job hunting, about this close to relocating. And she landed a job in LA. We didn't have a place to stay yet though. And I got a call when we were in the parking lot of Universal Studios. And our dean's secretary at the time, Cindy Weaver, she called me and she was like, "Hey, this is Creative Arts at Tri-C. Would you like to come in for your first interview?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." So I was excited. That something opened up back home, but I was also torn because we wanted to move out west. So, but it's been a beautiful experience. I'm able to be an arts administrator and still utilize my voice on stage, off stage. I do a lot of voiceovers for Dr. Johnson and things of that nature. So it's really a dream come true. It's a dream job.
Best of all worlds there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
It is.
Well, we just have a few moments, and I know folks would like to know how they can see and hear. I know you got a performance schedule up on your website, so let folks know how they can connect with Orlando Watson.
Yes. Where am I looking?
You can look at that camera.
Straight ahead. All right. You can connect with me online. I do have a website, wordsbywatson.com. That's wordsxwatson.com. I'm on all social media platforms for the most part. The major ones, Facebook, Orlando Watson, Instagram, Twitter, Lingo_Lando. That's Lingo Lando, one of my nicknames. How else can you connect with me? Yeah, all of my email, everything you need to do through the website. I do have a project coming out called Corner Stories that'll be released very soon, so keep your eyes out on that. But in the meantime, I do have a project already out, debuted at number 18 on iTunes, called Everything's Personal.
All right.
Yes, sir.
So we're going to have to get with you when that comes out.
I would love to come back.
Have you back as a guest, and then we'll just stay tuned and watch this star as it continues to rise. Man. Orlando Watson, it's been my pleasure.
Thank you, my brother.
Hands cold. It's a little chilly in here, but it's all good. We want to thank you for joining us on Open Door. It's been my pleasure to have this conversation with this young man and watch that star ascend.
Oh, man, thank you.
Know yourself, love yourself, be yourself, and make today your best day. Peace.
Peace.